Hey everybody, we are live and I'm here with Elizabeth McCall, who is the Assistant Master Distiller at Woodford Reserve. And honestly, I think anybody might recognize her because she always gives the toast before the Derby. Yep. So she's got a strong hat game.
No, I should have worn it today.
How many different hats do you have to rotate through, like in a Derby week?
Honestly, I just have a whole closet full of them. So like every day I just pull a different one.
And Brown-Forman subsidizes like
of course,
your hat budget. Okay. So anyway, Elizabeth, it's great to have you here. Your voice doesn't normally have.
I know. I'm sorry, everybody. Rasp. I've got this raspy thing. I'm like Phoebe. I'm like, I kind of like it, but also it goes out. So yes. I apologize.
Yeah. So, So how are things going at Woodford? I mean, it seems like from everything that the brand continues to have phenomenal growth.
Yeah,
it's incredible. I mean,
it is. I mean, especially when you think back to the history of this brand, and I think it's just incredible. It's like the little engine that could, because when this 1996, when it first came out, it was like, oh, if we sell 20,000 cases, oh my gosh, that'll be amazing. And it was supposed to be one of many boutique whiskeys to come out of Woodford Reserve, which is at that time was the LeBron Graham Distillery, still under the LeBron Graham Distillery National Historic Landmark, but it just took off. And now we're projected to be at 4 million cases in the next few years. So it's just insane.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's incredible, but the liquid's good.
Yeah.
So people like it, you know?
Yeah. So maybe before we get into like some questions, why don't we just, I'm going to nose the taste of whiskey, and you can kind of walk me through your tasting notes. I know you do this constantly all the time, but, I always say, to me, Brown-Forman DNA is always starts with Old Forester Signature. Mm-hmm. I love that whiskey. People ask me, what's the best whiskey under $30? I always say Old Forester Signature. 100%. That's great. It starts with brown sugar. Just like Jim Beam, I always say, it's an orange or it's like a chocolate covered orange. It's that yeast strain, Jim Beam. You can taste it throughout all of it. I always get brown sugar on Brown-Forman products. Yep. And I always say that with Old Fo 100. And I think it goes through into Woodford. So that's where I start with it. But maybe you tell me what you get.
So what I like about Woodford is that there is always that brown sugar note, but kind of because it's in such great balance, you're going to get, like, you may pick it up one day. Like, I've gotten a lot of apple lately, and I don't know if it's because I've been, not drinking apples, but eating a lot of apples. Mm-hmm. And that has just been a dominant aroma. But, some people might pick it up and go, oh, I got a lot of cinnamon today. And it's just because it's in such great balance that you're always going to get something a little different. And it just kind of whatever your palate tends to is what's going to be.
Yeah. And I think the oak profile, to me, it tastes older than I think it probably is.
Yes.
It's got more oak on it than what...
Well, it's the oak, and then so pot still distillation, it gives it this bigger, bolder, so I love sharing that story that we're pot still and we're column still. We're a batching of both two pieces together to give you Woodford Distiller Select, but that pot still highlights the malt, and malt kind of leans to the grainy but woody side, and so I think it gives it a little more oomph.
Yeah, which I don't necessarily get on the nose, but I get the malt. I was doing videos for a while, and I was chewing, and several people posted, I can't listen to this guy gnaw on his bourbon anymore.
I know, it is gross.
So now I'm like,
let me sit back and chew.
Now I'm really self-conscious about it, actually, so I'm not doing that, But yeah, it's got a nice spice. To me, it's soft entry, brown sugar, and then it kind of picks up some of that fruit on the mid palate, and then you get the spice on the back end.
Oh yeah, like the banana notes, baking spices, the oakiness. It's really, really. I mean, that's just signature of Woodford.
Yeah. And so, how do you interact between like Woodford and Old Forester? Do you have responsibilities for those brands, or is it all basically Woodford?
I have interaction like behind the scenes a little bit, very minimal. I pretty much work on only Woodford Reserve, and that's just by design. I feel like when I first started and I was master taster, I worked on Woodford and Old Forester, and then when they kind of started to try to differentiate the brands, try to separate them, because for so long they've been just so close, and I mean, we're still under the same kind of umbrella of super premium American whiskeys, but we're trying to just separate the two. So now I'm dedicated to Woodford, and I've helped with different, like, putting together different tasting pairings, and so it's been fun to do that. And I can speak on behalf of the brand if needed, but they really want to keep us separate. Like, Woodford owns me, and I love Woodford, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How many barrels are aging at the facility?
Oh, Lord. So probably we have a quarter, I'd say at least, and this is just a rough estimate, I think we're probably about 500,000 barrels, but we're growing every day because we have our 4 warehouses up on track 2. And I say track 2, that's like where you were at the distillery, up on top of the hill. We call that track 2. We have 4 warehouses. Each warehouse holds 63,000. So each side, so it's 250,000 up there. And then we have 4 that are currently in use and almost full in Midway, and we're building 1 more, and we have plans to build another 4, so there'll be a total of 9 out there. So, and the 4 are full, so about 500,000.
I'm starting to see, like, I saw Wild Turkeys coming out with like a single brick house expression. I'm wondering, since you have sort of the original stone, and then you have like the 1940s, 50s buildings that are different, and you have the stuff that's on top of the hill there. Can you taste differences between those? It's significant enough that you'd say, oh, I want these releases to come from this warehouse. Has there been any discussion about, that type of innovation?
We haven't really thought about doing that, just because logistically, like, for us, it's not as beneficial. And the warehouses up the hill have only been in commission since 2016. Okay, so I haven't really gotten a chance to get to know them that well. Right. And so I think that if over the years, if we do find that they have their own personality, that might be something we would explore. Warehouse C is where we keep our personal selection barrels. We keep distillery series, any weird stuff that happens during production, and we're like, oh, let's flag that in the system, put it in Warehouse C, and we'll monitor it. Because things happen all the time in production where you're just like, we got double oak barrels down here and put new make in there, and we didn't intend to do that, but now we might have something cool, so put those in Warehouse C and we'll see what happens. And it's just because Warehouse C is right there on site, so when we're hosting a group, I can pop in and pull a sample and check on things if I need to. Right.
And so you've got the malt, and remind me of the other expressions.
For our standard stuff, so we've got the bourbon, rye, malt, wheat, and double oaked. Okay,
that's right. Which of those would you say is, one of the more interesting ones that you personally enjoy?
For our standard expressions, I love double oaked, the one that you can get all the time. And I mean, the way I like to drink it is give me a rocks glass, I fill it up with ice and fill it up with bourbon. And you're like, is that flat Coke or is that double oaked? Like, what is that? So it's that's how I enjoy drinking it.
How long does it sit in the second barrel?
Up to 12 months.
12 months, okay.
So our spec is 6 to 12 months. The sweet spot is like right around 9 months in average. Yeah. But it can go up to 12.
Yeah, double oak, similar trajectory to regular Woodford. Like, it literally sat on the shelf, didn't get a lot of attention for a year or so, and then I don't know, in the last couple of years, it's just taken off. Crazy.
People are tasting it, and it's so funny. I had somebody comment like, "What do you think of this new trend of toasted oak bourbons?" And I was like, "New trend? Like, we've been doing that since 2012. Like, we started that trend, right? But we don't actually talk about it. We're very humble, and that's something that I'm trying to be less humble about it, because it's like, no, like, we've been doing this and we do it the best. Right. I mean, our double oaked is really, really good.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I was going to ask you. I mean, you obviously you're in this position, Brown-Forman, large family-owned company. You just look at like TTB label approvals. There's so many new brands coming out. I'd be curious to get your thoughts, because I think it's interesting. It just, it seems like, everybody's out there. They have this dream. They want to do a bourbon brand. Yeah. They have to kind of slap together some combination of this, this MGP and this product over here. I'm sure you've entertained ideas of like doing your own brand, but when you think through it, I'm curious to know if it's something that you're like, nah, it's not for me, or.
Well, it's not for me. And I think, but I have friends who are at these small startup distilleries, smaller companies, and I mean, they're doing great things, and I'm excited for them and just excited to see what will happen. But I'm such a, so like, I like stability. I like knowing that I'm working for a company that, yeah, it takes us forever to make a decision. I'll be like, yeah, guys, I'm working on getting this approved, but see it in 2 years, you know, like, because we're a big ship and it takes us a while to shift.
Campbell's now chairman, right?
Yeah, Campbell's chairman. Yeah, so Campbell is leading that ship.
Yeah.
I love Campbell Brown, and I love the Brown family. I love the culture of Brown-Forman. So I'm very happy there, and I love Woodford Reserve. You know, when people ask me, what if you didn't work for Woodford? I think I'd have serious FOMO. Like, and it's like, because I've grown up in the company. I love Woodford so much, and it was like such a dream to be able to work on this brand, and then a brand we have so much global opportunity, and I love to see like what's out there in the world, like what can we see the world do with this. And when it's a small startup, you get more flexibility and freedom to do creative things. But I honestly, it's weird, I can't believe I get as much creative freedom with Woodford as I do with Master's Collection and Distillery Series. I mean, I was like, I want to grow red corn with our neighboring farmer, and like my plan was just I wanted to be same terroir and explore an heirloom grain and see how it grows and be a part of the process, like working with the farmer. And I got to do it. It was like no question asked, like, okay, we can do this. And we know that it's going to be good, and working on the grain recipe and working with the distillery, like I get to be so hands-on. And it's just, so I feel like I get this cool craft experience, but under the shelter of that big corporation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, again, I think there's probably more flexibility with Brown-Forman than maybe some other companies, but
yeah,
and they've been in this whiskey business for a long,
I know.
long
Well,
time.
150 plus years. It's like, God, like they know what they're doing,
right?
And I feel there's a lot of confidence in that and a lot of security, and so I feel like the brand team, they have this awesome vision for Woodford and where it will go, and I get freedom to do. They are like, you got to figure out Master's Collection, and Chris Morris has given that over to me. Like, you steer that ship, and so that's been fun. And it's a lot to manage. I mean, it's crazy how much time that takes managing, and we've got inventory, like 12 years worth of Master's Collections laid down.
Oh, nice.
But you can't like lean on that. You have to keep going and pushing forward, and it's interesting because you're like, well, what's going to be awesome in 12 years from now? Like, what are people going to want to drink in 12 years? Like, I have no idea.
Tequila.
I know. We see the trends going there, right? I mean,
yeah,
people are loving tequila.
Right.
It's, that category is exploding. So I think it's just continue to explore that and just be a good steward of the brand for me. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned before you got on that you were at a women and whiskey event. Bourbon women. Okay. And I've seen these clubs everywhere. I've seen it pop up, and it's sort of like, oh, it's kind of a big thing and a big conversation in our company 3 or 4 years ago. And what do we do? And I don't know. I've always felt kind of strange about it. Like, yeah, does it have to be stated or named? And I wondered, like, as a woman in this business, do you have sort of mixed feelings about it, or you think, it's good, whatever's fine?
You know, it's funny you bring that up because
you don't have to answer that question.
No. I will answer it because I have my own take on it. Because first of all, I feel fortunate. I've had a wonderful experience in this industry. There hasn't been a lot of negativity, you know, and I feel like there are a lot of women who speak out and they've had negative experiences and been like, oh, what's a woman doing that? I don't know. But I mean, at Brown-Forman, my research and development group was predominantly women, still is. Like, you walk up in the lab and it's all women. Like, I can't even think of one gentleman that is sitting up there. And so that's the environment I've been in, so very nurturing. But when I got the role as master taster, I told Chris Morris, I do not want the headline to be Brown-Forman hires a woman master taster. I was like, absolutely not. Like, that's not my, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm a woman. Like, no, I got this job because I had the right skill set to do the job. And that's why I get that. And so I never want to be put on this pedestal. It's like, oh, you're a woman. And so I do with these bourbon women groups, it's like, okay, do we have to call out being a woman? But I have settled into and understood, and now I'm kind of wrapping my head around, we got to, I think, shine a light on it to make it part of the norm. So like right now the pendulum is swinging over here. We're talking about it a lot, but hopefully my hope is that I won't have to answer another question about what's it like being a woman in a male dominated industry. Do you know how many times I've had to answer that question? And I get it. I know, I'm like, oh my God, I'm telling you. But so it's like, I get why, but I hope that like I have a daughter. So hopefully by the time she's out looking for a job, it won't even be a conversation piece of like women, oh my God, there's a woman leading a brand, or there's a woman leading the production distillery. And, you know, it'll just be like a person doing it because we're just people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's always interesting to me because obviously we run lots of liquor stores, but there's lots of differences in people's alcohol preference. And I don't know that any of them are like, well, I'll just say, I don't think any of them are like hardwired into people.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of just cultural stuff.
Yeah, it's what you're exposed to.
Exactly, yeah. So when I see those things, I've sort of kind of like, root for it in a way, but then I'm sort of like, is that really necessary? So I don't know.
And I think it just creates, it's a comforting environment. There's no, I think maybe intimidation factor if you are new to the category and you're intimidated with like, oh, well, men, you have this preconceived notion that like men, just because they're a man, they automatically know more. Right. Which maybe there's that stigma too. And then men have to deal with that on their side of it. Like, oh, well, you're a man and you don't drink whiskey. Like, what is that experience like? Like, if you don't like drinking whiskey and you're a man, oh my gosh. Oh, you are, what's wrong with you? Right. You know, whereas me, like, for me, like, I was at a wedding recently and I walked up to the bar and I was like, oh, I'll take a whiskey. And they were like, oh, what do you want to mix it with? I was like, oh, nothing, just ice. And they're like, what? Like, what? And I'm like, yeah. Like, why are we getting such a big reaction? Right. And so hopefully, you know, just as more, it'll be like ordering wine. Like, everybody drinks wine, and it's not a big deal. Right. You know? So
do you have any responsibilities like overseas, expanding bourbon in an international market, or do you stay mostly in the US?
Well, right now, I'm here in the U.S. I've only done one international trip to Australia on behalf of the brand, but that's where the opportunity is. I mean, there's still a lot of growth here in the U.S., but Europe is where we see growth, in Asia, and so you know, we're doing well with South Africa. You know, we're all over. So it will definitely be a focus in the future. I see lots of overseas trips for me. Right.
Yeah. I mean, in Asia and in India, I feel like there's just huge untapped markets that the growth of the category will depend on those markets, 100%. Not necessarily continuing to grow this market, which will evolve, you know?
It'll evolve here, but that's where the opportunity is globally, for sure. Right. I mean, that's where our mindset is. And it was interesting. I was talking to somebody who works on our Scotch brands, and you know, the Scotches are big over in Scotland and in Europe, and so they're just the small entity. I was like, oh my God, one day, like, that's the goal for Woodford, to be a more global brand, and then the U.S. market will just be part of that business, like a more normalized part of the business. And
yeah, always in France, I'm like, you can get Jack Daniels and Four Roses and Budweiser. That's about it. Yep. But I feel like Woodford's got that sort of pedigree and
we're on our way.
And the premium price point to work in a variety of markets. So that's great. So, all right, talk a little bit about Derby Week, because I can tell that you're all over that, and that's got to be you got to be exhausted when that thing's over. It's a whole month for you of just work?
I mean, it's like we tell people we usually go to New York in end of March and do our initial PR pushes to talk about what the $1,000 mint julep is, what is the Derby bottle this year, and so we do our initial PR push. Then the month of April is local activation. Everybody, I mean, the city of Louisville is just all gearing up for Derby and horse racing and spring in Kentucky. The Thunder over Louisville. We just have so much going on. And so it's one of those months where I'm like, people will be like, can we go to dinner? Can we do something? I'm like, yeah, no, I have no life. Like, know that the month of April is dedicated to Woodford Reserve. That is my life. And I'm okay with that because that's what I signed up for. Right. But really, we've done such a good job of kind of navigating the PR, because it used to be we'd be backside every night or every morning that week, 4 a.m., got to be backside on camera making mint juleps. And now we've been a lot more strategic. Like, okay, every brand gets its day, and okay, Chris will go backside one morning, I'll go backside another morning, and then Derby is wild. I mean, we've toned it down a lot too, because we have now that we're the presenting sponsor, we have much more national news that we're doing. So locally, we've kind of got that covered on the weekdays, and then we leave it to national media, and so it's just the big toast live in front of 19 million people. No big deal, no pressure. But I love it. Like, I feed off of it. So
right.
I don't leave that week totally wiped out. Because I love it. And I feel so grateful being from Louisville and growing up and spending. I mean, was in the infield, like took the school bus to the infield.
Did you grow up in Louisville?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, that's what you did. You just got
right.
in, like, wore disgusting clothes. Like, you're like, I know I'm going to be disgusting all day in the infield, like you get rained on, or, I mean, all the stories, people running across the porta potties.
Right.
I mean, I was a part of all that. I was not running across the porta potties, but I saw it. But it's like, to know that I came from that to now I'm like finish line suite and get to watch the Derby and the best seats in the house. It's like, pinch me. I feel so grateful. So I love the whole week and whole experience.
Yeah, it's great. And I always tell people, like, I don't like crowds. I don't go to a ton of sporting events. But for whatever reason, this is the one event that I feel comfortable. Like, there's kids running around. Like,
it's just,
it's very calm and chill.
Yeah,
you know?
It is calm and chill.
Yeah, and we did Thurby last year, which is the first time we've done that, and that was great.
Yeah.
It poured rain, but we were under the awning. So, like, light a cigar, 10 a.m. I'm on one julep.
I know.
My big mistake one year was having like 3, and I had this like raging headache.
There's like so much
sugar. It's too much sugar. Yeah, one julep and then switch to Old Foe.
Well, then the best day is the best way to start your day is having that mint julep, and like you can get them where they're not the pre-mixed ones. Although the Old Forester pre-mixed mint julep is really good. Yeah. Like, it's much more bourbon forward, a little more of the less that, but it's like a tradition. Like, you have to have it, and it's better than coffee on Derby morning.
Yes.
It's so much better than coffee.
Yeah, I just like to be able to, smoke in public in the morning.
Yeah,
really
and you get dressed up. Like, that's the fashion piece of it is so fun, and I love that.
Yes, you get dressed up, and then as people are filing out, there's sort of various levels of dishevelment, and you just sort of see people
Shoes in hand,
unraveling, and it's great. So it's a great event.
And now it's all inclusive.
Yes.
You buy tickets, which is awesome. Like, I had been doing
way better.
Oh my God. It's like such a game changer, because I had been doing media on the backside and was walking over, and it was like 8:00 in the morning. So I'd been there all morning. It was freezing this Derby. It was really cold. So I was like, I'm cold. I just need something. So I grabbed a hot dog I was like, can I have a hot dog? Like, yeah, it's 8 a.m. and I'm eating a hot dog. But like, it was already almost noon for me. So it was like, it's good. Got up there, got a hot toddy. Warmed up.
You should eat a hot dog on national television and drinking a bourbon. That would go over well. Yeah, no, it's a great time. The game changer for me was getting the betting on the app, so I didn't have to get up.
I know.
That's the best.
I know.
Yeah. So it's a cool thing.
It's so fun. It's so much fun. Yeah. And Churchill Downs is what they're doing down there with the track and how much they've updated it. They've got the the longest bar in Kentucky. I know that at that one new section that they have, and they just keep upping the ante. Yeah. It's awesome.
I need to go back more than once a year because I'm only there once a year. I can never remember. It's such a mishmash of like buildings that have been built on top of each other, but it's fun. And from what I've seen, from the coverage and all the work you do a really good job.
So, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's
cool. So anyway, well, I know we probably should be talking about the bourbon, but anyway, so appreciate you being here. And continue the good work.
Thank you for all the love you give us in Indy.
Yeah, I've loved Old Forester 100 proof forever. I mean, literally, I'm not just saying that. That's one of my favorite bourbons.
It's we have it at our house,
and it translates well into Woodford. And so I probably drink more of that than Woodford. But Woodford's like one of those if you're in it's like an airport or hotel. Like you always can get a good bourbon. You can always get Woodford somewhere.
Yep. And it's going to be good. Like, it's tried and true. That's what I like. And it's very easy to get most places, especially if you're in the U.S.
Yes. Yeah.
You're going to get it.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Cheers.